Welcome, everyone. So excited to have you here. This is our Tuesday Talk Zoom session. Um, we have a number of great guests for today's meeting. The topic, as you know, is KU law and the military. We have a very long tradition of welcoming service members and service veterans to Green Hall. It's something we're all very proud of. And we're also proud that we think we've really helped prepare people to go off into either military law or into a career in law with a military background. Joining me today will be my colleague, April Strange, who is the director of the military student affiliated center. Thank you. Which is a great organization on campus. KU Law is not KU Law, but the university as a whole is routinely ranked as one of the top campuses, universities for military service members and veterans in the nation. And MASC is a huge reason for that. So if you could say hello, April.
Sure. Hi, everyone.
And then, of course, we're joined by several of our students who are currently serving or formerly serving military officers. If you could introduce yourselves, I appreciate that. Michelle, why don't you go first?
Hi, I'm Michelle Brady. I guess in the fall I'll be a 3L, or I may already be a 3L. I'm not really sure how that works. I was in the Army. I was enlisted in the reserves when I was 18, and I deployed to Iraq as a reservist and a specialist. And after I used my GI Bill and then an ROTC scholarship, I became an officer. And I was an Apache pilot until 2015. At the end of 2015, I got out, and I'm using the second part of my GI Bill to attend law school right now. So that is my background.
Great. And Brett? He's looking for that unmute button. There you go. Is that not in the Army manual, how to unmute on a Zoom?
I've done so many Zooms, but I've been bar studying, so I have too many tabs open. So I went down there, like everything started to pop up. I should have closed it out first. So, yeah, hello, I'm Bret Beavers. I'm a current active duty Army officer, intelligence officer major in the United States Army. Attended law school, just graduated in 2020 this year. Attended law school on a 2-year accelerated program because that's all the Army gave me. So that was a fun experience to get that done. Yeah, I have deployment experience, kind of intelligence experience, kind of all throughout the intel disciplines within the Army. Yeah, enjoyed law school, and I'm just graduated, and I am going to take the bar, but I'm kind of going back to the force as an intelligence officer, and I go to Korea for a year in September.
Great. I know we have some of our guests are also in the military. Why don't you introduce yourselves? Our incoming student. Tyler, you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Currently a first lieutenant, active duty in the Army. Did about 4 years reserve time as a commo specialist, kind of as a private, and then active duty. I'm an armor officer. And now I will be attending KU Law this fall through the funded legal education program, where I'll remain on active duty and then go back to the Army as a JAG officer following graduation.
Excellent. Who else out there is currently serving or retired?
Captain Stevens. I'm no longer serving. I went to the Naval Academy, graduated in 2010. Was an active duty surface warfare officer for 6 years, got out in 2016. And then I did 2 years of some contracting work, and now currently live in Spain, moving to Kansas hopefully really soon, and starting law school this fall.
Michelle, where are you calling in from today?
Me? I'm in Lenexa.
Oh, okay. I thought we had. I thought we had one of our students also in Europe right now. So, but I was mistaken. But that's wonderful. Thank you so much. To everyone for what you do and what you've done in the past and what you'll do in the future. Really excited about that. It's always an impressive group of folks, and we're really excited to have you here. So in a little bit, we're going to ask Michelle and Brett a bunch of questions about the transition to law school and what some of the challenges are and what some of the advantages are, and how that works. But I wanted to begin with April Strange and ask her some questions about some more practical questions about using your GI benefits at KU, and some other questions. So April, are you there?
Yes.
Can I just start off by asking, can you give some pointers, guidelines on the topic of how to use your GI benefits at KU?
Sure. We have worked really hard at KU to simplify the process of using your GI Bill benefits as much as possible. So if you go to our website at veterans.ku.edu, you'll see at the top a link for VA benefits. You'll also see on our homepage links and images by military affiliation. So it was important for us to be reflective of the population we serve. So we serve active duty, prior service, Guard reserves, spouses, and dependents. And so if you go to any of those pages, you'll find information that's relevant based on military affiliation, including how to access GI Bill benefits. On our VA benefits page, when you get there, you'll see a couple of boxes. You know, if you're a first-time GI Bill user, about getting your certificate of eligibility. If you are a current GI Bill user, you'd skip to the second box, which is complete your KU request. At KU, you'll do your request every semester that you want to use GI Bill benefits, and you can do it before you enroll in classes. You just need to have a KU login. You'll complete this simple form, which for those of you who are transferring your benefits, you don't have to do any VA forms to transfer. There's a box on our form that says, would you like to transfer your benefits from another school? And you'll check that box and list the name of the school. You'll hit submit, and you'll probably wonder, is really that all I have to do? And again, yes, we intentionally made it as simple as possible. You'll receive an email from KU when you've successfully submitted that says we've received your your request for benefits. You'll receive a second email when your advisor has checked off on your classes, and each school designates advisors to do that. And then you'll receive a third email when your paperwork is sent to the VA. A little bit different this semester because KU just came out with its schedule yesterday, talking about how the fall and the spring semester might be modified. We've delayed sending those information over to the VA, so if some of you have already done your request, you probably haven't received the final or even the second email yet. So once we kind of get all of that ironed out, we'll send that to the VA, but there's still plenty of time. The goal, I think, is to start sending them by July 1, which still gives plenty of time to certify and for any things to come in. KU places a deferment on your tuition, and so tuition isn't due until the end of the semester, which gives the VA time to pay your bill. So you shouldn't see a late fee. If you see a late fee, reach out to us. Something's either up. Most of the time it's because students haven't done that request for benefits, but then other times a human does put that deferment on, and so human error is entirely possible. So that's a pretty simple process that we have. I know for those of you who might be coming from a different school, you might have had to run papers around and stuff, but we've been virtual for a few years now.
And April, since there's so much great information on the website, if I were to Google, what would be the best way to Google the office so I could get all that
information? You could simply type veterans.ku.edu. You wouldn't even have to Google.
Even better.
We try to make the URL as simple as possible. You can also email us at veterans@ku.edu if you have any questions. For those of you who might be using tuition assistance, we have a page for tuition assistance as well. For Army tuition assistance, it is a little bit more intricate, and we've put all that information on our website too. So feel free to reach out to us as well with any questions. We're happy to answer them.
Great. And could you talk briefly about the services that your office provides to our students?
Sure. So this virtual background of mine is actually our center. We're working right now to move the furniture around and get it set up for the fall where it's accessible, excuse me, but of course honoring the safety protocols. Currently, the lounge is, we've had it, shouldn't say currently because we're not on campus, but in the past, the lounge has been 24/7, and we're hoping to be able to continue to do that, that students could come into this space to study. It's a kind of a quiet space. A lot of people will study in here. We have CAC readers on our computers. So for those of you currently serving, that's pretty helpful. I see Brett shaking his head. Probably wish it was there before.
I had no idea about this stuff. I was like, oh, how many times I was driving to Fort Leavenworth to get CAT card access and access email when I was at campus. So,
Gotcha. Well, we'll work on letting more people know that. I think we probably do need to put that information on our website. But yes, we have CAC readers on our computers. We're working to get webcams installed as well. We've got at least 2 computers in the lounge, and then we have some other spaces as well. We have a Student Veterans of America student organization. We've had law school students involved in the past, and we try to do some things with the Military Law Society as well for that student organization, and it's part of the National Student Veterans of America chapter. We do some events during Veterans Day week. Perhaps our biggest tradition at KU is our annual Vets Day 5K, which runs through campus. Right now, it's still going to be an on-campus event, but for the past couple of years, we've also had a virtual run, and so there'll be an opportunity for people to participate virtually. It's in November, the week of Veterans Day, so I think it's November 15th this year, and we're commemorating the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. And so that 5K is just kind of a great opportunity to bring the community together to celebrate veterans, to run past all of the war memorials on campus. So that's a great time that we do. We've flexed our hours too in this very virtual environment. We're going to continue to offer flexible hours for those who work during the day, for people in different time zones. And so folks can go to our website and reach out on our Contact Us form and schedule phone or virtual appointments. Of course, we're available via email too. We provide honor cords for everyone who has served and is serving at graduation. And so that information is on our website. When those of you get closer to graduation, you'll definitely want to check out that program. And then we have, for those who are prior service, we have VA Vet Success on Campus, which is a program that provides a voc rehab and career counselor who's a full-time VA employee. We're one of 100 campuses nationwide to have that program. We also have the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs. So that's a state veteran service officer that can help get comp and pen applications, copies of DD-214s and other military service records. For the fall semester, he is going to be available virtually, but in the past and hopefully in the future, he'll come to campus once or twice a week to visit with students as well. Really, we're about providing a community of folks who take their academics seriously, who have similar backgrounds. It's a very great environment to just meet people who get it and have places to study and network with others on campus.
That's great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Yes.
Now I'd like to turn to asking our current students some of those big questions. These are questions everyone really has, no matter your background. But I think they probably come into special play with folks with military background. So Michelle and Brett, talk about going to law school. What are some of the, let's start positive. What are some of the best things about going to law school?
I think one of the best things for me was being able to have the kinds of conversations where you really delve into questions and nobody's opinion is isolated or is judged, and you don't have to have a certain opinion, and opinions are utterly useless, honestly. It's more about challenging your assumptions and challenging your conclusions and having an honest discussion about things. And I think I didn't realize I'd been missing that for a long time. And I had really smart friends. I mean, we were all pilots and officers, but I think it was kind of a little bit constricted, like we were all sort of in a box and we all had the same ideas and the same thoughts. And it's nice to meet tons of different people who just really think through problems. And I think one of the challenges was Army training is about thinking fast and about reacting and making decisions quickly, especially as a commander. When I was in Afghanistan, like I just had to make decisions really fast and trust myself and be confident, and that's awesome. But in law school, there's no right answer. And so the best thing is learning how to think slowly and how to really question everything that comes in and everything that comes out, and realizing that there is no right answer, and that when you work through problems, you come to two good answers, both sides. There's two sides to everything. And it was really kind of hard for me at first when I was like, well, this is the answer. And obviously, like, what are we even doing here? This is kind of pointless. And it took me maybe a full semester before I was like, oh, holy shit. There is a legitimate second side to this that I just didn't even see. And now I can think through every step of how they come to their conclusions and what they want and what legal remedies there are for them. And I think that it's just been like kind of mind-blowing, honestly. And I've had an amazing experience. So I'll let Brett talk because I talk a lot and he knows that. But anyway.
Yeah, I think that was really well said by Michelle. I think what I would add is just she kind of got into the details, which I think are all really good. I think just as a broad stroke kind of description, it's law school is 100% both a personal and professional broadening experience. You know, broadening is one of those terms we use in the military a lot too, so it'll be familiar, but I will say that 100% that is exactly what it is. I mean, you're going to come out, you know, I can speak from like getting through that whole process now, you know, coming out the other side. And, you know, when I take the moments to self-assess and be reflective, 100%, you know, if you take full advantage, go into it with an open mind, like Michelle was discussing. And it's a learning organization, not in the sense like the military says we're a learning organization, we adapt and overcome. I mean, KU does that certainly, but it's a learning organization in the sense like it's a 24/7 learning experience. You're learning why you're at the institution, why you're outside of the institution. And so if you open yourself up to that process, you're going to come out the other side a more well-rounded individual and certainly a more well-rounded professional coming out the backside of it, just in terms of your ability to be deliberate, to think critically, to conceptualize and be pragmatic at the same time, and combine all these skill sets into each other, understand people, become empathetic, all these leadership skills that the Army stresses, and the corporate industry for that matter stresses very hard as well. They're reinforced and they're integrated into everything that you do. Problem solving, being resilient, all that. So you're just going to come out, if you attack it with a purpose and stay determined, you're going to come out just a better person, but 100% a better professional as well. Whether you decide to use a law degree to practice law or hit corporate industry and be a leader in an organization or a nonprofit, like it doesn't matter what you're going to do. If you're going on the outside to enter the civilian sector or back into the military, you're going to be a better leader because of law school, 100%.
Yeah, Steve, can I actually say something too about communication? Like Brett just said, I did not realize, I mean, and it sounds so obvious right now, but like I was very direct and I was direct in everything I said. And sometimes that's kind of insulting to people. And I didn't quite realize that because that's just how we were, you know, like it's faster. You just say the truth and then you don't worry about it. But in real life, you have to be tactful and you have to be patient and you have to think about the effect on the listener. And it's not just bullshit. It's important because if what I want is to achieve some result, I have to communicate that efficiently to my listeners, because otherwise I'm not going to get what I want. And so I have learned not to totally suppress who I was before, but to evolve in my communication style with different people and to listen more than I speak, although it doesn't seem like it. And I think it's been really, really helpful. And not in a whitewash kind of change who I am way, but in a become better kind of way. Like Brett was saying, it's just better. I just feel like a more complete person, and I feel fulfilled. And I can't tell you how helpful KU specifically has been for me. Dean Freedman, I did lose my scholarship, but he worked with me so hard to try to get my grades back up so that I wouldn't lose it. And it just didn't work out for me. I have 2 children, and my husband is currently like stationed elsewhere. I'm also a mill spouse. So, but everybody is so helpful and so encouraging. And it's not a question of if you can do this, you can absolutely do it. It's a question of, are you going to put the time in to do it? Are you going to give up? And that's not really our way. So I just think you guys are going to be so much better for this experience. It's unbelievable. And I hate to just be preachy like this, but I can't explain how happy I am that I came to the school. Like, I am so happy. So I'm going to be quiet now. Bye.
Well, Michelle, the T-shirts in your mailbox when the KU Law. That was really kind words. Really great to hear our students talk like that. And of course, we're welcome to take questions from the folks here. We definitely encourage you to ask questions at any time. You can do it by chat or by just taking off your mute button. Thank you to April Strange for helping us. She had to step aside for another Zoom meeting, of course. So the next question I'll ask is, the typical law student, and KU is the same. We have students of all ages and backgrounds, but, truth be told, the typical law student is going to be straight from undergrad, 22 years old. What kind of, did that affect your process or let me just put it bluntly. Did you feel old? Because I started law school at 30 and I have my own thoughts, but I want to hear from you guys.
I would say I kind of going through I kind of like jotted down kind of within the framework that you pushed out before this. So I would say like I kind of approach it from transition and then do I feel old? Like, so for the transition piece, because I think those two kind of go together, your 2 topics that you had going into this. So the transition from military to academia to KU Law specifically is like, first of all, that's familiar. I think you'll find it familiar if you approach it with the concept of like, use what you know to answer what you don't know. You don't know what law school is going to be like, but if you're in the military, you were in the military, you do know what it's like to go to a new organization, a new unit, at a new location with a new job. So first of all, what I would just like encourage everybody to do is kind of take kind of 3 concepts like we use in the military all the time. Like when you get to KU Law, take a moment to learn the organization, take time to learn the people, and then take time to learn your job. And your job while you're at KU is to be a student and be a learner, and to integrate into the learning institution to become better from it. And we've hit on that enough. In terms of whether you feel old, I think there certainly were times because you do get separated into small groups. The composition of the small groups once you get broken into it, and being a summer starter at a pretty tight-knit small group. Like in general, I would say a lot of us in the military have been around individuals of all ages, whether you were in command or whether you were prior enlisted. So, being shoulder to shoulder, if you're, 30 with an 18-year-old is not uncommon, but there is a little bit of difference in like, the hierarchical structure of the military. You find yourself working shoulder to shoulder as peers, at the same level within the institution with, in my small group, when summer started in 2018, I think at least 3 of them were 20, and I was, 33 at the time, and so like talking to them, I was closer in age to some of their parents. I mean, 100%. I mean, we actually did the math a couple of times. This is a joke. And I was like, yeah, I'm like actually closer in age to your parent than I am to you, and so that's interesting. But I would say from that, the unique thing about it is it wasn't odd. It wasn't like, at times, yeah, you'll feel old, but it wasn't in a negative way. Like when I was feeling old, it was always like in jest with peers kind of just discussing it. But like the perspectives are interesting because if you are a little bit older, if you're in your 30s, for example, and I call that older because most everyone's seem to be in their 20s, but there's definitely a wide array. I mean, we had a couple retired military, John and Eric, and they're old enough to be my dad, so it's just, you get a little bit of everything. I didn't think it would, just in short, I didn't think it was that odd. It was also in many ways familiar. The only things that were kind of interesting is being able to be so open. The military kind of, like oftentimes the 20-year-old, like if you're 30, is, much younger in rank and much junior in rank. And there's barriers into how open that communication line can be to prevent fraternization and all the other stuff we have to deal with. Where in this case, it's like, oh, they're 21 and we can have an open and honest conversation, really talk about whatever we want to. So that allows you to get kind of, I found myself kind of just interested in kind of getting the perspective of like, what is the 20 to 25-year-old perspective on certain topics? What are they thinking about? What are they concerned about based on where they what their background is? So I found it interesting, but yeah, there are times you feel a little old potentially, depending on how old you are and what the composition of your small group is. But there's everybody of all ages. So.
Yeah. I, as always, agree with everything he says because he's amazing. But I am 37, and I honestly didn't necessarily feel old, but having children is the biggest difference, I think, because a lot of times the perspective of my classmates, I think they had a hard time just understanding what some of the cases were really about, because they didn't have kids, and so they couldn't even imagine what a parent would be feeling in certain cases, except for by comparing it to themselves. And I think it really helped me to get a fuller picture of what we were talking about and what was at stake. And I think that was great because I got to give that to my classmates, whether they wanted to receive it or not. They got it. And I don't know if you guys have kids, so maybe that isn't a big difference, but as just for my age, I didn't really feel, I'm older than Brett, and I didn't feel that old. And the two people he was talking about were both lieutenant colonels, retired, that were there. So, it's all ages. I wasn't even the oldest person in my small group. And it's really not that big of a deal at all, honestly. I think the perspective that you guys would bring, just having more life experience, is going to be really helpful to everyone around you. And it was helpful to me to get the perspective of, I didn't even know what ghosting was. I don't have Twitter. Like, I don't know what this stuff is, but they explain it. And so I feel a little bit cooler than before. So that's awesome. And also, I forgot to tell you guys, I'm the president now of Military Law Society. So should probably put a plug in for that. We don't really do anything because of COVID, but I was really hoping to be more active next year. So I'm just hoping. And if that doesn't occur, then I'm going to need somebody to take over after that. So just keep that in mind as well.
Bryan has asked a great question. And before I get to it, I just want to apologize, Bryan. I forgot to introduce you as a service member. So please introduce yourself.
As you can all see, I've got the telltale beard of somebody who was in and is no longer in. I was in as enlisted medic for 15 years, and then I got broke, couldn't deploy anymore, so couldn't get to 20, sadly. But it allows me to go to KU now, which is pretty exciting. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. And Bryan asked the question, how did non-military affiliated students and staff handle the direct nature of conversation we are used to in the military? Who wants to grab that one?
I saw Michelle reaching and she saw me reaching. I think who's going to take this? I'll just briefly say, like, everybody I think took it well. Like, at the end of the day, like, if you are a little more direct or I think even I had to kind of come in and soften. I came from an organization immediately prior, an Army organization immediately prior to this, that kind of prepped me, softened me kind of going in. It was a mixed organization with contractors, a lot of civilians of all different ages. So I learned some very valuable lessons coming out of all military organizations into one that was still military, but it was mixed. It wasn't all military personnel. So I got a little bit of a head start in trying to, like, soften my communication skills as I kind of grew as a captain through, command and stuff like that. So that definitely helped me out. I would say in general, everybody takes it well. At the end of the day, if you're a little more direct in your communication, Simon, it just comes down to basic communication. Like, if you're being honest and you're trying to communicate effectively and you're listening, if you're more direct in your approach and your presentation of the stuff you're saying, I found everybody took it really well. I mean, again, you have people from all walks of life in law school. So like even me, like at times has been described as a little more direct. I think people took it well. It's like if you're being direct and then also you're not a good active listener, and you also on top of that, you're always trying to like win an argument or win a conversation by stacking your opinion on top of everybody else's. Yeah, that's when I think a direct style communication becomes a barrier to a conversation in a learning environment. But if you're direct in the way you communicate, but then you listen well and when you speak, you're trying to, actually add something to the conversation, and that's not a problem. It's just like, at the end of the day, direct communication is harsher when to be blunt, when you have a little bit of a harsh personality or character behind it. If you're just direct, I think everybody took that well. But if you're direct, unwilling to listen to other people's opinion, and unflexible in your approach to conversation, then you're going to have a problem. Anybody's going to have a problem in that situation, I think, when it comes to communication skills.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what I said before about learning how to just be more effective in the way you communicate to your listeners. But I think that the biggest way being direct is a positive is in asking questions. Ask the questions that you have. And don't be afraid. I mean, just be ourselves, right? And that's one of the good things about being from the military is I will raise my hand and ask the question that everyone else is thinking every time. And I think that it's helpful to your classmates because they don't have to look embarrassed if they didn't understand something. And I don't care. Like, you can think whatever you want to think about me. I'm going to ask my question and I'm going to learn because I'm paying for this. So I think that that's when you can be direct and really use it. And I think when it comes to criticizing other people's viewpoints and criticizing in a good way, like, hey, maybe you forgot about this, or maybe you didn't quite think about this. If you're less direct at that time and more, just thoughtful in how you present what you want to say, but still say it, I think that's the best way to approach it in these kinds of groups, especially because a lot of these people are young and you don't want to crush their souls. You just want to point out some flaws in their thinking in a really like just a better way, I think. But ask those questions directly and everyone will love that.
Yeah. I mean, I can say in practice, speaking directly and succinctly is valued greatly. The last thing a judge or a partner at your law firm wants to do is try to guess what you're trying to say. And they want to hear exactly what you're saying. And perhaps when you talk to the client and you're delivering bad news, you can be a little more empathetic. So those are great points. Let me ask you I have another question here. Well, no, Bryan just said thank you, so excellent. So let me ask the next question. What were some of the challenges you faced transitioning to law school? You've touched a little bit on it, but especially in those first couple of months, what adjustments did you have to make, and just what specifically was challenging?
I guess I'll just go first because I'm unmuted and Brett's is still muted. So it was hard. This is going to sound kind of weird, I think, but maybe you guys will get it. It was hard to come from being a deployed company commander for 2 years and then being the S3 of a battalion and having the respect that I get from a lot of badges to coming to an environment where nobody cares, nobody knows, and you're just some girl, And I think that I didn't realize how hard that was going to be for me because I didn't realize how much I depended on the self-esteem that my uniform sort of gave me. And it was a weird thing that I didn't expect at all. So I just want to bring that up as something that could occur. And it really helped me take a step back and reevaluate the basis of my own self-confidence to remind me that I am that person and that if you have to prove it to everyone you meet, that's great. That's what everyone else has to do all the time they don't get the benefit of a uniform that tells them that they should respect you. You have to actually earn it every single time. And I think that that's a really valuable lesson. And it was important for me to learn it. And I think it was also difficult to find the time to buckle down and read as much as you really are going to have to read. it's fun reading. I'm not going to lie to you. It's really fun. And especially because they're basically just stories. So that's exciting. But with kids and, you know, just more life commitments, it's a big drain on your time. So I think be deliberate and figure out what you can cut out from your routines now and try to streamline your life so that you'll have huge swaths, like hours and hours that you can spend reading every day. And try to read everything. And I think that will be helpful.
I have 2 questions. Oh, sorry, Brett. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's probably a good time. I was just going to ask, I kind of like wrapped my challenges up into kind of like what I would say would be like strategies for success. So if we're going to touch on that in a minute, I'll just hold off on kind of commenting at this point, unless you just want me to throw those out there. But I mean, I'll absolutely ask your question first, but I didn't know, Steve, what you wanted me to do.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot from the Army. Maybe it's time for the Navy to speak up. So,
Cool.
Just real quick, I've heard
not to
about
stoke inter-service rivalry or anything, but you know.
the military law group, Michelle, that you were talking about. Is that does that have to do with going back into the military and practicing military law, or is it just a veterans kind of group, or what is that?
It's anybody who wants to join. You don't have to be a veteran, and you don't have to be trying to go into JAG. Basically, we just wanted to have a small community of a place where we can share outlines and talk about whatever we want to talk about. And I always envisioned us going on runs together, and none of this stuff ever came to fruition yet, but there's still time. And I also wanted us to do like one volunteer thing a semester with the Community Veterans Project. But honestly, it's open to anybody. And we're kind of just re-putting this group together. Apparently it has existed for a long time. And my friend JJ kind of was president last year just so that it wouldn't die. So we are looking for input, and we just want to be a group of people, and it doesn't matter who you are. Like, please be in this group, basically.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. And then my other question was, if you guys see, for those that aren't going back to the military, do you see kind of like a field of study or a more typical like civilian career path that veterans kind of tend to get into?
No.
I can tell you that based on a lot of experience of having worked with military students, a lot of folks go into litigation, and in particular into criminal law. I think DA's offices and defenders' offices do show a lot of interest in military veterans. And also just litigation in general. I think that kind of maybe it's a little stereotypical, but the sense of military bearing, or I hate to use a trite phrase like plays well in the courtroom, but that kind of the kind of command that's been literally drilled into you for a long time, I think shows up in a lot of those areas. But my experience is also our alumni go into just about every path under the sun, coming from a military background, including JAG Corps, of course.
Yeah, Catherine, I know, so I'm interested in MedMal. I know that one of the lieutenant colonels who was here before is doing estate planning, and it's kind of just whatever you're interested in to come here for. I'm also interested in doing JAG. If they pick me, I would do it, But what he was saying about litigation, I do think that a lot of us are kind of interested in that. I do moot court. It's really, really fun, and I cannot describe how fun this is. You basically write this brief that's super fun to like research, and you get to be persuasive, and it's creative, and then you get to stand in front of sometimes real judges and argue it, and it's so cool and so awesome. And I would definitely be interested in litigating, and I think that a lot of officers, or it doesn't matter, military people in general, would have the kind of presence that he's talking about in a courtroom, and you're not intimidated by somebody asking you questions directly, because it's just like every other day, it's your commander asking you questions, except for it's a judge. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah, I would just add, just since I finished up, spending some time with Project for Innocence, but more more appropriately to your question, the KU Legal Aid Clinic, and getting courtroom experience in this last semester, although it ended up being truncated amount of time I found myself really, really enjoying, more so than I thought I would. Not that I didn't think I would enjoy the criminal law side of the house and representing clients in the courtroom, but I found that to be super familiar in a great way. I found, like, from the military standpoint, if you're just talking about like transitioning skills over, again, they apply to everything, but direct application to like being in front of commanders, briefing, communication, presence, is a great term, because what I found is, like, you know, the preparation I did in the courtroom really translated into a presence that the judges would recognize and really seem to like. And then the communication skills transfer to deal with the clients. I liked everything about it. It incorporates, when you're in the courtroom, before you go in, there's planning. I mean, it's the planning phase. I mean, plan, prepare, you know, like all that stuff, execute. I mean, it's like the whole process. You just kind of go through it. So it's like you do your planning, includes research, talk with the client. If you're talking about, like, you know, criminal stuff, and then you get in there and you have your outline ready to go. It's just like a cheat sheet. Get in there, you brief, you kind of know what you want to do. You set your goals, you know, like we're talking lines of effort, lines of operation. We're talking like all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's all the same stuff we do in the military. You use the same terms. You're just approaching it a different way. Like, I mean, you could really reach into on the Army side, on all the Navy planning processes. I know they have similar ones. I mean, you could take the MD&P process and apply it to how you're going to execute in the courtroom. And when you can take ADM, Army design methodology, and use that in preparing for it before you get in there to conceptualize and frame the problem and take it in. I'm telling you right now, like, military going into the courtroom, you're cooking with grease, man. I mean, you're going to be good. Like, so I love being in the courtroom. The fact that it got cut short, I hated it. I just picked up a couple more municipals too. I was like firing through. All I want to do is, like, you know, do well, represent the client, get back in the courtroom. Let's go meet with a prosecutor. I mean, everything about it. I mean, it just incorporates all the stuff you think you're going to do as an attorney. And then I think it translates over, just like the practice of that, to do anything else in law too. Sorry, I got all hyped up for a minute there. I was like,
oh no, I'll tell you what, guys, this has really been fantastic. We're coming up on about 45 minutes, which I think is about how long we like to do these things. I think this thing could go on for another 45 minutes. There's been so many great comments. Some of the questions I was gonna ask, I think have already been answered. I think Brett just answered, you know, what advantages does a military background bring to law school? But I want to thank you guys for spending time with us. Thank April Strange, of course, and particularly thank Brett and Michelle for sharing their insight. And I know Brett already mentioned he's going back into the intelligence world. And Michelle, you might JAG is something you're considering. We could do a whole nother episode or Zoom chat just on careers after graduation, but we're gonna have to leave it for another time. Thank you guys so much, really appreciate it, and wish Brett and Michelle the best for her 3-0 year, and Brett for going forward, and for Bryan, Tyler, and Catherine, and all the other military folks who are coming this year and in future years. We wish you the best at KU Law, and know that we're there to support our students, whatever your background is. So thanks for joining us, and have a great day.